that when we had some, I think I can only go as far as saying we had some challenges, cybersecurity wise at CME, and we really revamped our cybersecurity program.
Okay.
I mean, I would say it's probably one of the best in the country right now.
When did you do that, to revamp it?
That was, the challenges came in like 2010. And these like 2010
specific challenges. Can you talk about that at all?
I mean, you could probably just go as far as saying like, a near hack.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, everybody is hacked all the time.
Or at least there are attempts.
Yeah, attempts. Right. And a good cybersecurity person will operate from, we have been hacked. So it's not just purely like we're stopping it. There's a whole wing of a good program that's looking for IOCs, indicators of compromise, that's just looking to see if you have been hacked, because the assumption is you have been.
Okay.
So there's a bunch of stuff you're looking for. So you get that, but like
it's like a great metaphor for just being in the business community. You're like just assume that someone's trying to get over on you.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly right.
Today on the show, I sit down with cybersecurity expert and dear friend Ivan Clatanoff. His role at the Chicago Mercantile Exchange, otherwise known as CME, is the director and product manager of data governance. We touched on a variety of topics such as the power of quantum computing that is a significant and emerging threat to cybersecurity, what you can do to protect yourself in this landscape, and finding the balance between working in this field, which requires a consistent level of suspicion, and trusting those around him in his life.
And while CME is really well funded, because of where we sit, we're up against nation states. They have plenty of funding. We're up against hacktivists that don't, take a view of capitalism that, some, modern Americans might. And then also
that are living fed off the hog.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I mean, we've had protests where people left gold toilets in our lobby. Like, we're not always the best thought of.
Did you?
No, I didn't.
Take one of those.
I actually had a mortgage to pay, so I said, that wasn't me. Yeah. So, and then the other thing too is that no matter how much money you have, there's somebody out there with more time. Just continually knocking away, continually putting together new tools. So just spending a bunch of time in infrastructure, a bunch of time in project management, a bunch of time in architecture. Then this event happened, and they wanted to ramp up. And one of the things that I really liked about this opportunity was there are a whole bunch of people out there that are just like that. They kind of view it as like negative, like they say, everybody's trying to pull one over on me. They take a very like kind of, did we clear Josh? I don't know if I can trust him. But I took more of like, this is a fascinating chess game. Like, what do you do to block this? How do you, what confidentiality level do you give this document so that if you want to send it out in the wild, it would be blocked? How do you vet interns? There's so much. It's like a big chess game, and that's fascinating to me.
Well, once you get past the fact that you can't trust anybody, I guess. Well, basically, because that could kind of eat at you as a person walking through the world, I would imagine, if that's your worldview and it's kind of seeping into your subconscious as a human being.
Yeah.
So you got to try to kind of, but what you were saying is more you're kind of keeping it at a distance and appreciating the intellectual side of it.
That was important for me, and it's you bring up a really, really good point because, everybody knows everybody's corporate values like trust, value, blah blah blah. Right. Everybody can just rattle them off. They're all the same for all the companies.
Sure.
But one of the things that's important to CME is to assume good intentions when you're dealing with people. Like that's really important. However, that is antithetical to cybersecurity. So it puts all of us in this position of like, Steve, I'd love to help you get access to that USB. Why do you want access to that USB? So it is, and if you don't keep that distance, I would lose the chess game, and I don't want to go through thinking that like everybody out there is trying to pull one over on me. Because I don't think it's true, and it's exhausting.
Yes.
So I just would rather put my energy into just like sort of evaluating the facts, the situation, an important part of cybersecurity is understanding your risk profile,
Yes.
risk tolerance, appetite, instead of just assuming like, ad hominem, like Steve's a bad guy because he's asking for this. That's crazy.
Yeah, I would imagine. I mean, do some of your peers like kind of suffer from this view that they start not trusting people in their lives? Have you ever talked to any of your peers in this regard? I'm just curious since you brought it up, because it seems like that would be a logical progression if someone's not very proactive in keeping that separate and understanding what's going on here.
I haven't. At work, I try to really just keep it to work. I like this woman might be my boss. She might have to fire me. Like, just like we're all just professionals here.
Right.
But I have seen people like, we have offices around the world. You travel, you go out for dinner, and you do begin to hear stuff, and you're like, whoa.
Yeah.
This might be getting to you. You just have to
what do you mean?
Well, you just begin to see like
The dark side of folks?
Yeah, well, the dark side of the folks, or the like, well, I don't trust the keepsake VPN, so I built my own VPN. Or I have I have all of my technology in my basement and I run it all myself. So it's just like, boy, if that interests you, that's great. But it seems like a lot of overkill. I mean, I'm glad you have enough money to do all that. That's great. But it just seems like, man, that seems like a lot of overkill. And
a lot of energy directed in that anxiety-filled type of exploration and keeping you safe, even though it's important, but it's about balance is what I'm really speaking to.
It totally is about balance because, and we'll, if we get to like talking about like, phishing and social pretexting and whatnot.
Definitely.
So much of this stuff is ego driven. And so when you see people like getting like crazy about like protecting their stuff, there's like there's usually an ego component that some threat actor can exploit. And so, there's when I see people like, like I'm going to build all this myself, or I don't use this technology for that reason. You're just like, first of all, is the stuff that you're talking about that important? It may be. I'm not going to denigrate what people are talking about. Sure. It's important to them.
Yeah.
But also, you are what's at the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark? Like, we're all those little those little boxes at the end of it when they roll in the Ark just to hide it. Like, your stuff is such a small 1 and 0 in the giant ocean of bits and bytes that like you have to protect yourself. Nobody else is really going to protect you. But how important is your stuff that someone's like coming after you on purpose?
Right, and that's really the issue. And well, you mentioned VPNs. I mean, should we all have one?
I mean, they're not a bad idea. They're easy, they're cheap.
Virtual private network for those of you who don't know.
Yeah, so basically they just encrypt your traffic out to the server that you're trying to connect to. So,
which means nobody else can see the information because it's scrambled.
Yeah,
encryption.
Exactly. And anything that's commercial. So, for example, some of these people that build their own, anything that's commercial, you will have like metadata. So is that like, like I know that Steve made an encryption connection to Chase Bank every day at noon.
Okay.
Like, okay, well, is that, I combine that with a bunch of other data elements and open source. Yeah, build something. So, there are people that's like, I want to keep all the metadata on my encrypted, like that's that kind of like hunker down mentality. Or there are people like, I just don't want somebody sitting in Starbucks who downloaded something to pick off my bank statement.
Well, that I heard, I was a few years ago, I was chatting with a couple of young guys who were working in cybersecurity, and they said it's super easy to steal information from someone's phone if you're on a public Wi-Fi and this other person knows what they're doing and you're not protected with a VPN. Is that true?
Yeah. Like one of the things I would say don't, most people are fortunate enough to have unlimited data. That's not true of everybody. So this is obviously sort of gets into this conversation about money equals protection. But just staying off of public Wi-Fi's is a good idea.
Yeah. Oh, just in general, even with a VPN?
No, if you're going to use them, use a VPN.
Oh, for sure.
But, they do cost money. So,
Okay.
but it's like, if just really think about like, oh, you know, I know Backlot Coffee. I love it. That's great. But you don't know who's sitting next to you.
Exactly.
You know?
Exactly.
And even though you all, you know, like this vibe is cool and nobody's making me uncomfortable, you don't know what anyone's doing. And you don't know what anyone's doing in the empty store right next door. Because you know how you're sitting in a store and all of a sudden it's like, you want to connect to the Starbucks? I'm like, I'm not in Starbucks. Oh, wait, it's next door to me.
Yeah, exactly.
So
exactly.
a VPN is just a really good idea to run.
For sure. And that's what I thought. But also what came up for me when you were talking is, I don't know how familiar you are with Bitcoin, but that's a whole nother thing. And storing that properly and having this level of security when you get into the thousands and millions of dollars is really, really important. And it's a whole like area of expertise that people need to be involved with to protect their Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Are you familiar with that at all?
A little bit. I mean, let's start with the stories from the people that are like, oh, I'm going to buy some Bitcoin. And all of a sudden it's worth like $3 million. And they're like, Mom, where'd you throw out my hard drive?
Yeah.
And they're like, who knew? So, you know, like if we end up talking about Salt Typhoon, which is a huge China phone hack, same thing. So much of this was built before anyone even thought about security needs. And so now, I do know a little bit about it because one of the things at CME, you can think about, you know, we're close to 24/7 trading.
Oh, yeah.
But, you know, not all forms of liquidity are open 24/7. Like your banks might not be open.
Right.
But you do have, with access to like either stablecoin or Ethernet or Ethercoin or whatever, you have access to do trading potentially more often.
Yeah.
And so we looked at, do we want the risk of owning our own wallet? Do we want to, and then like if we use a vendor, I will tell you this, like this is why stuff is so safe at the CME. We rake our vendors over the coals for security. I mean, we go over every connection, every IP address, every technology, every version of it before we hand over our trust to them. So, you know, we're like, okay, well, let's, you know, do we want to go use Coinbase to hold our stuff? Like, how safe are they?
Well, the thing is, even if they are safe, they could get shut down.
Yeah.
Or the government could come in, and then all of a sudden, your assets are confiscated or frozen.
Yeah.
And you have nothing. You can't do anything about it.
You can't make margin call. You can't trade. You can't do your job. Yeah. Exactly.
That's what. So you know, we did a whole podcast on Bitcoin, and I interviewed a couple of guys about it, and it's really.
Let me know if I'm talking shit. Then.
No.
Okay.
It's great. No, it's great because what they always said is not your. If you don't hold your Bitcoin, it's really not yours. And that meaning you have to hold it in cold storage off the internet.
Yeah.
Don't ever leave it on an exchange. These things can happen and have happened. So that's a really a whole nother ball of wax with the level of security. And then now you're dealing with quantum computing.
Yeah, which Bitcoin is at risk for. It's one of the biggest things at risk for.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so now quantum computing. So my limited understanding is most cybersecurity is based on the prime number issue.
These massive prime numbers.
Right. And so have you seen, you would love this series that we called Prime Target. It was all about this young scientist who figured out a way at Cambridge to break this, figure out the sequence of prime numbers.
This was on Apple?
Yeah. And it's all about cybersecurity. But if you have quantum computing mixed with a little, throwing a little AI there, then all of a sudden your computing power goes up exponentially.
Yeah.
Then we've got a problem.
And take this situation. So we'll jump ahead and come back.
Please.
But like, imagine if I want to go hack the Fed, and I know that government systems are usually really slow to be updated. You know, like the National Healthcare in England is still running like Windows 98. I mean, there's stuff that's just old out there. So imagine if you had an AI system map, and so those things we're talking about, those big prime numbers, those are called keys.
Okay, right.
Yeah. So so what you do is you say, imagine an AI system that says, do you like, let's just oversimplify this and make it like super modern. Do you want to steal? Do you want to disrupt? Do you want to create mistrust? Oh, I want to steal. Then the AI says, okay, these are the keys you want to apply your quantum mechanics to crack. And then it's just like you have like a plan and a toolbox to do it.
That's
like you don't have to go in like now. I haven't been that on top of it, but the really rudimentary analogy is when someone hacks in, imagine like you wake up in a room that's totally dark. And you have to be like, oh, okay. All right. This might be a microphone. All right. I feel pedals. This might be I might be in a band.
Huh.
Because you don't really know when you get somebody's credentials, you don't really know what they have access to yet. Just because I steal Steve's password, I don't know what he might just be like, he might be the CEO and has access to everything, the CFO, or he might just be like the janitor who has to put in his time.
Wow.
So you have to do like this feeling around. And if you can speed any of that stuff up, you are just getting to whatever your hack motivation is, you're getting to faster.
Wow. That's really intense. What are some of the most... God, we just covered a lot. That's awesome. What are some of the most common cyber threats that a business would face? I mean, if you haven't talked about some of them already.
No. It's really important because part of it is they're all so like prosaic and boring. They're just like, don't run Windows 98. Like, like literally update your systems. Mm-hmm. And then like when you're updating your systems, you have to learn enough to think to myself, am I updating firmware? Am I updating hardware? Am I updating software?
What is firmware?
So firmware is like somewhere in between like the hardware and then like the software. So it'll be like the little connector pieces that take the code from the software and execute it on the hardware. So like, sometimes, I don't know if you're a Mac or an Intel guy, but Mac. It's just like, so you might not see this, but you'll see like, something about your BIOS. It's just these little tiny pieces of software that connect doing something in the real world to the codified instructions you're giving.
And so which is more, speaking of Mac, and that's a good explanation, the difference between Mac and PC-based computers, which are more secure?
I don't
because I've heard that generally the Apple operating system seems to be more secure, but I don't know.
I'm only repeating like stuff that cyber people say at 5:00 after the conference, which is that basically there are just fewer Macs in the world, and there's no big industrialized capitalistic companies that like, we're Citibank and we only run Macs. Like Microsoft has that market locked up.
Yeah.
So why am I going, like there's no Apple server to run your bank on. So it's basically like, they're coming after like laptops and phones. Don't get me wrong, because of the interconnectivity of things, phones are getting really important. Yes. Phones are giving off tons of information
all the time.
I mean,
we're in a surveillance economy, right?
Totally, an attention economy. That attention drives the ability to surveil even more.
Totally.
Yeah, and then when you, I don't know if you ever heard of Pegasus. Pegasus is the software that is purported to have come out of the some part of the IDF, the Israeli Defense.
I've heard of this.
The ones that like they use to track journalists in countries. Yeah.
And they can get all types of information without much of a like a conventional connection.
Right.
I mean, it's pretty remarkable.
Yeah. So nobody. I've never heard anybody that knows how they do it. But do you know about the concept of 0 day?
Please.
Yes. Yeah. So 0 day is like there is a hack out there. To get into somebody's system that they haven't blocked yet.
Okay.
And so one of the reasons why they think how Pegasus operates and why it's so powerful is they like assemble multiple 0 days. So you don't have to click on anything. Like if there's a 0 day, I can get in there. If there's a 0 day and I block it, then I need your password to get into your phone. So they have accumulated a mass of 0 days that they kind of cobble together to make this straight pipe into people's phones. And no one really knows how they do it, and they're certainly not going to tell anybody.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the 0 day just simply means a way to get into another computer device, whether it be a phone or a computer, whatever, without just bypassing conventional barriers and protections?
That and the company doesn't know that it exists.
The company that's being attacked.
Yeah, the company that provided the software. So Apple doesn't know that this exists. All of these companies have these things called bug bounty programs.
Okay.
And there's just everyone around the world is trying to make their bones by finding 0 days. And then you go and tell Apple about them. And then Apple does not tell anybody about them. And then all of a sudden it's like, we recommend this security patch. You should do it right now. Because they want the world trying to, white hat hackers trying to break in and find this stuff. And they're like happy to pay tens of thousands of dollars, sometimes more.
For the information.
Of what they found, how they did it. And you have to prove, you can't just be like, I got in. You have to be like, here's my code. Here's what it's pretty, you have to
And
work
this
to get your
happens
money.
all the time. I'm
It's
assuming.
going on everybody right now. Google has them, Microsoft, Apple, Verizon, they all have them, all of them.
Wow.
Yeah, and that's how they find all this stuff, and that's what all the input is. When it's like, you should do this for security, and because it lets Spotify work better. All of that comes from their internal and external bug bounty programs.
So we should always be updating our
back to where
iOS
with my typical Clatanoff elliptical conversation, going back to the most boring things you can do are the most secure things. Just if it
updating
says
your software.
Yeah, just update it. Just keep it updated.
What else can we do? What are the common mistakes that people do, or things that they can do that just basic would enhance their security?
So updating is most important. Okay. Not running outdated anything.
Okay.
VPN in public.
Okay.
There's this sort of this push back post Snowden to be like, we don't like you using iMessage because it's encrypted and the government can't see it. But then, with what I talked about before with Salt Typhoon, huge Chinese phone hack.
Uh-huh.
Now it's like, please, could you use iMessage? And iMessage, from my understanding, has actually gone to post quantum security. They're one of the first people to start adopting it.
Post quantum?
Yeah,
they're taking into account the power of quantum computing.
Yeah.
With their security right now.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, so there's
That's heavy.
It is. I don't know enough about it to riff on it too long, but there's a national something standards, NIST. I can't even what it's called. But NIST is the one that literally came out with the first here's how quantum computing is going to work. And then NIST also does they'll publish all sorts of standards. It's a standards board.
Right.
And so NIST, I can't remember when they released it, but they have a whole series of papers and pre-standards for getting ready for post-quantum encryption and protection. And so, you have to, companies with money can do it when their security is part of their brand.
Right.
So some of them are going to it because right now, most of our systems, the general thought, as we start off this conversation with assume you've been hacked, we know that our phone systems have Chinese hackers in them. And they if you go from are you the green guy?
What?
Are you the green guy in group chats? Are you using an iPhone?
Oh no, I have an iPhone.
Yeah. How there's the one person that's always green.
Yeah,
and you're what the hell?
That's
so
the text message.
Yeah.
Instead of the iMessage. Yes.
So those can be based on what they know about from this hack in early 2024, I think, 2023, Salt Typhoon. The Chinese can read those texts.
The green text.
Yeah, when you go iPhone to Android.
Ah.
So so a lot of people now are like, can you just please use Signal? Please just use
Signal.
And people will say things like, oh, those are secure, but we know they're more secure.
That's what I'm saying. Using a service like Signal, I guess if you're an incredibly talented hacker and you really wanted to find out what I was saying, well, maybe you could do that, but it would be harder for just the average Joe to figure that out. Is that
Yeah, which
basically?
so let's tie two concepts together there.
Sure.
You use Signal to stay safe. You're a journalist in an oppressive country. That oppressive country says, I'm not going to bother to hack Signal. I'm going to go buy Pegasus, and I'm going to get into your journalistic phone and see everything you're talking to, everybody you're calling, all your
And
contacts.
Pegasus can bypass Signal as well?
Yeah. Everything that's on your phone you can see. So I'm told. I only read one book about it. And it's terrifying.
Yeah.
It's terrifying.
Yes.
You know?
I saw a piece about it on it was a documentary or a news piece about it, and it was really disturbing. I couldn't believe it. I mean, I think it was Ronan Farrow was talking about it when he was because the guys that were protecting who's the
Harvey Weinstein?
Harvey Weinstein. Yeah, he hired some Mossad guys.
Yeah.
And they were using Pegasus
To get his stuff, right?
Yes.
Yeah, terrifying.
Yeah, and this was just, not just, it was about, these women that were being oppressed by Harvey Weinstein, which is horrible, but there's a whole nother level of nefarious activity on a worldwide scale that's even more disturbing. Wow, that's really incredible. So,
and it's we're so dependent on it. Like we're talking about the surveillance state and the attention economy. All of that is because I have two phones within 6 inches of me, and so I can be like, it's a surveillance. I'm participating in it.
Right, exactly.
And so did you ever watch the British? I think it's the British made the American remake of The Bureau. It's a spy thriller. Happens out in the American embassy in the UK.
Okay.
There'll be times when the agent says, I'm going dark, and they're really good with this stuff. You see him grab basically I think it's called a Faraday bag.
Okay.
And it's because even when your phone's off, it's still pingable and emitting. And so these are little bags.
Wait, hold on. You just said when your phone's off, it's still pingable and emitting. Could you just tell us specifically what that means? What does pingable mean when it's off? How is that possible?
Because it's off in like the oldest sense, like, I don't see anything on it.
Right.
The electronics are alive and well.
Really?
In there. Yeah.
Even so, they're still running. There's electricity running through it in some.
Oh, that battery charge in there. I mean, like the Find Your iPhone is like one, like sort of like you keep heading down that path to like Find Your iPhone. Then that technology can now operate when the phone looks off. Like it's your assumption that it's off because the screen is black.
Yeah, that is my assumption.
Yeah, that's not the case.
Wow.
So it's pinging cell towers.
When it's off.
Yeah.
Huh.
So there are some things. If I'll find this. There's a bunch of stuff you can do to really minimize that. Like they're deep in the settings. They have to do with Find My iPhone. They have to do with like location sharing services. But there is some stuff that you can do to minimize that. But it's just really cool to know that the showrunners are like, I know that, and agents will drop this. And you buy these bags on Amazon. They're like $8, and they're basically just like a thin lead shield that doesn't let
allow you to
any signal hit it, any signal go out.
Do you have one of those?
I do. I only do it when I'm playing spy.
That's awesome. Wow. There's other things that I was wanting to ask you about, like social engineering and dealing with human beings. I mean, how do hackers exploit human psychology to breach systems? I mean, I would assume that has something to do with phishing and things of this nature.
Yeah, and you're spot on. It is. It takes all the technology that we've just been talking about out of it.
Okay.
Like, you don't really need to you don't need a quantum computer to hack a password when someone gives it to you. So there's it's all the sort of things that you think about. Like you want to watch for like calls to action. You want to watch for urgency. But then, there's a great...
I mean, so if you get a text message or an email that says, hey, do this, or do this right now, and you got the sale, or whatever it is. Yeah,
you have too many fines on the toll road. The police are going to come in the next 30 days if you don't pay this. And it sounds... And as for people... We used to have this wave every summer where the the interns would always flunk our phishing tests at work because we send out fake emails. And they're just like, boy, I guess the CEO really does want to talk to me because I'm a hotshot intern. Click, you just been phished.
Oh, that's wrong.
Yeah, it's so wrong. But I have to say that like that as we were like edge of the bubble. But as more and more people like just grow up with this technology, they are savvier to be like, Grandma, that's fake. You know that, right? Like they're just so much savvier. So we've seen it go down. But there's a great, I think it was the New York Times article about one of the guys, a psychology professor at an Ivy League school who fell for like the Nigerian prince scam.
Wow.
And it's so vulnerable. He just writes about it. About like how he got suckered into it.
Right.
There was just another article about a dad that fell for one of those like meet women online scams and blew like $40,000 in 1 month.
Wow.
Yeah. And it's, like they appeal to loneliness. They appeal to like this possibility of a better future. There's a call to action. This will get cut off to you if you don't pay another, $1,000 today.
Right.
And so, you start to combine all that and, do you ever get the text that just say, hey?
Or hello.
Yeah. So that's in theory, I don't know if it's still true, but that used to be something called pig butchering. And it's a translation from a Chinese term.
Oh.
And so people will be like, it'll be like, oh, hey, and they're sending out hundreds of those an hour.
Right.
Somebody pings back, they run with it, and it's like, oh, my Ferrari just broke down. Wait a minute, here's a picture of me. And it's like, somebody attractive in front of a Ferrari.
Right.
Not true at all. And then it's just like, oh, do you want to know how I made all this money? I made it in crypto and blah, blah, blah. Like it just heads down that way.
Right.
Until you're investing in it and then they disappear. And that's the pig butchering. Like they fatten you up.
But if you, right. Okay. So if you respond just once, and you're not giving in to them at all, or you're just like, hey, how are you? And you're just messing with them back. Are they able to hack you?
Not unless...
Unless you give them some information.
Yeah, unless they send you a link.
Okay, good.
And it's not. It's a link. It's also a PDF, a document.
Oh.
Just don't touch anything.
Don't open anything. Don't click on a link.
Delete. Call it junk. There's like,
okay.
Like we think we're being clever. There are 8 million of us thinking that we're being clever with them right now. They've seen it all. Yeah. We're not going to make. You need to be a world-class hacker to follow back. And there's a couple guys that do this. They're on YouTube, and they'll reach out to the call centers that are doing this stuff in other countries, and they'll be like, why is that guy next to you wearing a white shirt? I thought and the people are like, how did you hack it? It's
awesome.
Really complicated. It's really I don't know if they're true.
I would love to know.
But you can look at all these people that have tracked back to these call centers because it is in other countries. It's just it's industrialized. They're just sending out thousands of hays.
Right.
And and so much there's so much stuff out there to be like, we know that like loneliness peaks at this age for this gender. There's so much hacked information out there. They know exactly who in the US, in Chicago, is that age, is that gender. They might even be like, I'm going to send out a hey on their birthday in case they're feeling like extra lonely. Like there is so much information. It's not just like, okay, let's do 667-1935, 667-1936. There's so much behind that.
Yeah.
That is now just getting easier and easier to build those models.
Right.
So
especially with large language models where the processing power is increased now with quantum computing coming down the road. I don't know if quantum computing is being used that much in the corporate environment at all. Is it? I don't think it's ready yet.
No, my understanding,
but it will be.
Yeah, it will be. It's my understanding of it is I think, and this stuff changes by the month, that Google's Willow chip is the most, or Willow quantum computing system, I don't even know what you call it, is the most advanced. And it runs, I think, almost 100 qubits.
Okay.
And they think that you need thousands to crack like RSA.
I see.
So
and RSA is the normal type of encryption that is commonly used for corporate security or any security.
Yeah, it's one of the common ones for like, they're different. Like elliptical curve is what they use on Bitcoin. RSA is what they use for like email.
Oh, I see.
There's different algorithms out there,
see.
but they're kind of based on just these large prime numbers that can't be defactored quickly.
Yes. And so just for our audience, if you want to check out our other episode on quantum computing mixed with AI, yes. Basically, it deals with superposition so that, a particle can be in two places at one time. And then when you observe it, then it snaps to one place. So what basically in the computing environment, a computer can actually deal with multiple possibilities, a quantum computer, and in class at one time. Mm-hmm. And so it can deal with just exponentially more information, which, plays itself out in a lot more computing power. Mm-hmm. And then it can generate answers to questions that much quicker. Classical computing cannot do that. It deals with zeros and ones, and things are in a very specific place all the time. It's very predictable. And quantum computing is just a whole different paradigm. And it also is less stable. So it's
really hard to keep the qubits in superposition.
So they have to work on that to get that stability in line with what they want to use it for. Yeah. And it'll be a little bit before the corporate environment uses it, and even farther down the road before we use it personally. However, everybody's planning for it. It seems an inevitable type of thing. Wouldn't you agree?
I do. You have a lot of energy. I think qubits really require cold to stay in superposition. So there's kind of like with AI, we're gonna hit some energy problems.
That's why nuclear power is so
kind of on the rise again. Right?
Yeah. Even though with all of the issues surrounding that and all of the potential dangers, it is an amazing source of energy if we were able to mitigate that, because a nuclear reactor issue is kind of a problem.
A little bit, yeah. It can make for a really, really bad century.
The whole ocean has radiation, and our fish are all doomed, and that sucks.
I think there's a move to smaller nuclear power plants that are more secure. Mm-hmm. So a lot, like the Fukushima.
Isn't Apple or Bill Gates working on that? I'm sorry to
interrupt. No.
Yeah.
I remember reading that the future is these smaller, think more modular and more secure, where they've kind of designed out the problems that you hit with, way back in the day, 3 Mile Island, Fukushima, and so they think that's going to be part of the resurgence. These smaller, more secure and people, and it's like, our time is over. People won't remember those things, and they'll be like, "This stuff is great. Why weren't you using it? 50 years ago?"
Yes, that's what I was. So it's smaller. You can manage it better. The security, they obviously we know a lot more about how to manage it, because probably the mistakes that were made with some of these power plants like Fukushima were probably, looking back on it, may have been just boneheaded things.
You just didn't know better.
Exactly.
Just did not know better.
Didn't understand the enormity of what you were doing.
Yeah.
What could go wrong.
Yeah.
Oh, it's fine. I mean, now radiation has been leaking into the ocean for a long time.
And so you're telling me that if something goes wrong, your plan is to release it into the ocean? Yeah, it sounds like a good plan. We know better than that now,
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing.
But those, I think we're a ways away from what they call Q Day. Did you guys talk about Q Day?
Please.
Yeah. So Q Day is when finally they get enough qubits that they can crack these big prime numbers. And
that's Q Day.
That's Q Day.
Oh, this is okay. So I just went right to that in the beginning of this interview. Okay, so that's Q Day.
Yeah, that's Q Day.
Okay,
exactly. So that's when we will have a quantum computer that can crack these algorithms. And so then you have to think, you can, obviously when you don't know anything, I'm going to oversimplify this. So let's just do the classic human, it's either this or that.
Please.
But you could have the chaos nation state that says, I'm going to, banking, everything's going to go to zero. I'm going to shut off all the water. I'm going to shut off all the missiles, blah, blah, blah. Or it's going to be this case kind of like they did with Alan Turing and Bletchley Park when they cracked the German code for submarines. They were like, oh, no, I'm sorry, we're going to to let British soldiers continue to die so they don't know that we have it. So we're just going to try to reduce it. So it might be a case where, like, say Q-Day is in like 2035, we might not know it until 2045.
Oh.
People might be like, why did remember when the power went down in 2037 in London? Wait a minute, remember when, like, China went into Taiwan, but we were about to send all these forces, but then the water turned off in San Francisco and we didn't give a fuck about Taiwan because we want our kids to have water? It might not be years afterwards until we realize that somebody has cracked Q-Day. Yeah.
That's a lot to take in.
Yeah. So, is that space getting closer? Do we need to, like, take a break back and go to the chess game as opposed to, like, the world is going to eat us?
I mean, that's just so heavy to think about. That I mean, I know the story of the codes that were cracked with the Germans ahead of time, and that they didn't want to let them know. I'm familiar with that, and then they allowed. So this is all about long-term strategic planning, where in the short term there's collateral damage and people died as a result of it, and they couldn't say, but they needed to win the war. Yeah, which I'm glad the war went the way it did. Yeah. But that must have been just a really
take all the people that aren't here because of that long-term.
Absolutely. And we don't have to make decisions like that, but somebody had to, and somebody will have to. Yeah. And that's why a lot of people it's very easy to criticize people in leadership roles from a distance and say, well, if I was there, I would have done X, Y, Z. Well, it's very different sitting in the hot seat. So if you're the president or you're a senator or what have you, there's all these pressures that are coming at you.
That you and I don't know about.
Exactly. Yeah. Heavy pressures.
Was Obama just talked about how, like, it took him so long to get used to the terror that was in the daily briefing that the president gets every day? He said before you kind of, like, level set into, like, knowing how really terrifying the world is. And then
I bet.
And then he also talked about how, like, he would walk through Air Force One and, you know, one of the news channels would be up and they'd be like, to your point, President blah blah blah, and he would just look at it and goes, is that why I did it? Oh, interesting. Like, there's so much weighing on the decisions at that level and on those time horizons.
Yes.
So,
and I mean, do you have some of that pressure in your job to, like, a smaller degree? I mean, you're making very important. What is your official title at the CME?
Currently, I am a product manager for data governance.
Product manager for data governance. So that's your purview. That's what you are in charge of, data governance, making sure you're the guy that they look to. You're the point person that say, hey, man.
And then I point out to my boss.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But he puts stuff to me. Yeah.
Well, but you're the guy that's orchestrating most of it. Isn't that true?
Yeah.
I mean, what do you do when somebody breaches security?
Yeah. So a really mature, and we have one, cybersecurity program has steps that they drill all the time for that.
Okay.
And so it's everything from, not only do you have a breach notification process, not only does everybody know how you define a breach before you have to announce it. Do you have to announce it to your, cybersecurity insurance policy if you have one? Something looks odd. Is that a breach? I don't know. Like, there's a lot of work that needs to be done before you can say we were breached.
Yeah, and it's a need to know thing. Yeah, at first, for sure.
Because because insider threat is always a distinctive possibility,
and you could cause chaos in the markets.
Totally. And you even need to, is a breach that somebody got in? Is a breach that somebody exfilled some data? Like, there's a lot that you really need to define, and a mature program will have all of that defined.
Wow.
And then when you hit this level, then this process kicks off, and, like, everybody knows that you need to go grab the logs from these systems, and you need to alert the response team, and then they start hacking back through the logs. It's all done by timestamp. Like, when did this happen? And the timestamps go, I think, to the micro nanosecond. They go really, really low.
I would imagine, because trading happens at a really intense speed nowadays, right?
Yeah.
So, what's really interesting is when I listen to Senate hearings about cybersecurity and the internet, it's obvious they don't know what they're talking about or what's at stake here. And so if government officials did know about cybersecurity, what do you think they could do to deal with cyber threats better?
That's such a good question.
Oh, thank you.
So, for better or for worse, like,
I mean, it must be laughable when Zuckerberg is talking to some of these senators and the questions that they ask. I mean, I as a layperson who has some technical,
you're pretty savvy, dude.
Yeah, but not like you. I mean, you walk.
It's this niche. This is the niche, though. But I mean, for better or for worse, our Congress is a very exclusive geriatric facility. So they work facility. So with great health care that none of the rest of us can afford, no accountability. Anyways,
and insider training information, which is great.
Exactly. So
no rules.
So and that will come back to why we're probably not as good at cyber as we should be. So we kind of like, what was it, 2008? We were like, dude, did you get an iPhone? Dude, that was amazing. Or 2003, I can't remember when that was.
Somewhere around.
Like, we were aware enough that we're not nincompoops, but, like, we still get calls from, older people in our life who are like, should I click on this? Do I need to renew my Microsoft licensing? So you have, like, people who have never dealt with the internet.
Right.
Asking those questions.
Right.
What I wish would happen is, that, like, but really the country is run by all of their staffers who are like half our age, if that.
Right.
Those are the ones that I wish would be up there asking the questions.
Yes.
Those are the ones that I wish would be being like, Zuck, what about X, Y, and Z? They don't have to be like, now explain to me how you make money. Like,
I know. I couldn't believe that.
I know.
And he's just saying, we sell ads, sir. Well, that's not totally the actual situation.
Right.
You're selling data.
Yeah. And then we're giving you for free. Like a young kid would be like, that we're giving you for free. Yeah. So, and so one of the things that we could do is try to like, get hopefully as we'll get a little bit better about this just knowledge wise as new people begin to take over in our government. But one of the things that the U.S. is not really good about is industrial policy. And that's a combination of I think I'm required to say like fractious political times and all that sort of stuff, but like that doesn't help. But like, when we were less fractured, I read the other day that between when I think it was Roosevelt decided on Social Security and the first Social Security card was issued was 11 months. Like, we've gotten away from doing stuff at a massive scale quickly. And, there's so many reasons about that. If you ever get a chance to read Ezra Klein's book, Abundance, it talks a lot about how government kind of gets in its own way. But industrial policy of saying, okay, look, we built, because, we're a sort of a capitalist economy, and the phone system came into existence before anybody even thought about hacking. And that's why hacking evolved first in the phone systems. Like the first people who were like connecting wires to make free phone calls, that was the start of all hacking. And because nobody designed a system to say, like, okay, somebody's going to do something nefarious. It's like, it's cool, we can all talk to each other. And now we make trillions of dollars talking to each other. But our communication system is this like hodgepodge of old copper wires and new technology.
Right.
And until we can get at a scale that only the government could pull off, to say like, all right, our policy is that you need to do X by this date, and here's the task force that's going to do it, and you guys are to contribute, and we're going to contribut, and this is the reason why we're doing it. And that is something that we're just, you look at how in China right now, so many of the mobile phone companies are now the car companies. Because, they just said like, okay, wait, we have all this technology and the government is going to get behind that we take all the stuff that we learned from Tesla and we're going to crush the EV market, and the people that have the technology currently to let everything work are the phone companies. And so apparently if you go to China, it's a seamless transition from talking to your phone to getting in your car. And the cars are made by the phone companies. And so it's a massive scale of industrial policy that says we are going to focus on this industry. And we would need something like that. But like Brian Krebs, who was the head of CISA, which is our big cybersecurity agency. I mean, Trump went after him because he was saying some negative things. And so it's just like there's just so much distrust, and it's something that feeds off of distrust to exploit. It's going to be a real challenge. Like it's just going to cost 10 times as much to clean it up because nobody believed that this was coming.
Wow. So, I mean, these companies are basically electronics companies.
Yeah.
That you're mentioning, which is really, really intriguing. It doesn't really so matter what the product is, whether it's a car or a phone. They're seamless. So, that's why, Tesla got into solar roofs and these huge wall batteries to harness, or to capture rather, solar power and to store it. So it's like an energy/electronics company that makes cars.
And it's targeted.
Yes.
Like we're not going to let the free market decide if you want a blue car or a red car. It's a targeted thing saying you are an electronics company, and we are going to pay you to develop the best car possible.
Oh, so are you saying that's what happens in China?
Yeah.
Oh, I see.
And we're not good at that.
It's interesting because as you're talking, it's obvious that we have a very different dynamic of governance than China. And so I think, we'd like to think we have some semblance of democracy left, hopefully, for a little while. But with China, they can just implement things that much quicker.
Yep.
And that's like the plus side of an autocracy, where you can, just say, we're going left and we're all going to go left, and you don't have a choice.
And your lifespan becomes 60 years because of it, and you can't drink the water because of it, but we're going to own this market.
Yeah, and that's how it goes.
Yeah.
And we'll have, social credit scores and all that, but it's definitely a mixed bag for sure. But
I think that mixed bag for us. Sorry, go ahead.
we used to be better at that.
I agree.
Where the corporate and private money and the government money and was able to be harnessed into create solutions to problems better in this country. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I would. And I know, when it was the bailout in 2008, when it was like, deregulate Wall Street, government get out of my Wall Street, all that sort of stuff. And then when the banks failed, it was like, boy, we really need to be bailed out and nobody's going to be held accountable. Like the big corporations are perfectly willing to take advantage of government help if it's advantageous to them.
Totally.
So we need to find a way to package cybersecurity in a way that isn't just like, oh, that's just you guys tooting the horn. It's not really that bad. But there's got to be a way to be like, profits are going to be hurt. I would say that people, probably below that, sadly, like lives will be lost. And if we do this, profits will be made, and you will have more customers to buy your shit.
So in terms of enhancing cybersecurity across the board, that's what you're saying. There will be some short-term pain.
Yeah. Like, you got to be careful with...
I guess the way you language that is really important because that depends on who's suffering the pain.
Yeah.
It should be quantified or qualified rather.
Yeah, exactly. And I think there has to be pain to prove the point because we just aren't good at listening or seeing the value, even if it's like, it's going to cost me a little bit, but I would really like all my fellow Americans to have insurance,
Yeah.
So we've gotten away from that, but I think there will be times when, the hard part is that pain is going to come at a really inopportune time because you don't ever fire off a cyber weapon because the minute you fire it off, I knew you have it, and now I have it too. It's not like a bomb to blow up and I got it.
Exactly.
So, all of the systems that nation states are into in our country, they're sitting on. They're not just going to go like turn off the water for no reason.
That's the thing. I mean, my understanding, or at least, my educated guess is that China is all up in our systems. For instance, probably have, when you mentioned the Q day and we won't know, they probably are there. maybe. I mean, well, not with quantum computing, but maybe with other modes at their disposal. And they're just going to wait for the time when they need it.
Yeah. And it was kind of arrogant on our part, but from the stuff
we're very good at being arrogant.
Yeah.
And unaware.
And NSA was the top of the world, everybody else. Mm-hmm. But a couple of the hacks lately, especially, do you remember the one where the Chinese stole all the files from the government, basically personnel department? And it's the Office of Official Employment. I can't remember what it was called, but it was like a hack of like 500,000 records of people and their security clearances. Like, we've had enough hacks that even like you and I know about, that people are starting to be really like, wait a minute, China's now like on par with the NSA. Like, it used to be like, you know what, we've got tons more on them. And people are starting to be like, wait a minute, I didn't think they could do that. Because
there's corporate espionage happening all the time. I mean, stealing corporate secrets.
I mean, they...
Planning and for new products and all this stuff.
They stole the People's Liberation Army, stole the plans for the F-35 fighter. And so they have a plane that looks just like our F-35 that apparently is made for like a third of the cost. Yeah. So there's so much scorpion espionage.
And government espionage. And we're doing it too.
Yeah.
I mean, we're not innocent
we all. And all that I think is doing is delaying that pain that will finally make us take action. Because it's like, I don't want to fire that off. We don't want to fire that off. We don't want to retaliate that way. If we are retaliate, it's going to be tiny. Like the big pain, like nobody really wants to bring that. So I think it's a little bit of just like deterrence, because you've got it, I've got it.
Mutually assured destruction.
Yeah, but it's like until that big pain happens, people won't be like, you're right. I don't care. Raise my taxes 10% if that's going to like let my kids be safe on the internet or whatever it is.
Right. Yeah. Well, it's always it's always a balance between our civil liberties and what short-term pain we're willing to go through for a sense of security or what have you. And we're seeing that play out right now, obviously, in a very big way. But I wanted to make sure that I asked you about, because one of the things you said that was important is the move to the cloud.
Yeah.
Could you talk a little bit about that and why that's important and what significance that has?
Yeah, it's one of the ways. So we talked about it a little bit earlier with our telecom system of being like wires into software. Like in all of those seams, you can exploit ways to get into the system.
Okay.
Every connection point.
Oh.
So, like, okay, that's great. That's great that you have a Ring camera, but your front bolt doesn't work. So you can watch somebody walk into your house.
Okay.
So one of the things that's nice about the cloud, to some extent, is this thing called the shared responsibility model. And so it's like, I don't need to go out and hire security guards to man the doors at my data center.
Okay.
Google's going to do that for everybody. Oh. AWS is going to do that for everybody.
Okay.
I don't need to ever update.
AWS is Amazon.
Amazon, web services.
Okay.
I don't need to update any of my software because the cloud provider has built an architecture where they are going to take care of it. And it won't be so customized. Because one of the things that companies get into, like going back to the NIH and running their Windows 98, is that it's either so customized or they don't have the money that there are these vulnerabilities just sitting there. Mm-hmm. But when you sign up with a cloud provider, they're saying you are not going to be able to go into the kernel, which is really deep in the operating system, and make these modifications. Because all these modifications are what keep you from hitting like, update for security. Like, you can't go in and mess with your iPhone's kernel. Like that's why they
How do you define a kernel?
Oh, kernel's like it's part of it's deep in the hardware. It's like the brain of the hardware.
Okay.
That says like do this, do that. Like I get this, I get that.
So it's the most fundamental part of the computing environment.
Yeah, it's at the level. And there's a security aspect to the kernel as well.
See. So it's very difficult to penetrate that.
Yeah, although I hate being old. It was a couple, like maybe 10 years ago. There was it called Heartbleed?
Okay.
Where they found a way to exploit kernel vulnerabilities, and people were like scrambling to make the new chips that we're doing now to fix that. I think it was called Heartbleed. I should have looked that up before. But anyways, so you can't touch any of that stuff with the shared responsibility model. It's like take it or leave it. And that allows Google or the cloud provider to just update their systems to keep them safer.
So let me ask you this. So
a lot of it's a lot of places where you could fuck it up is in somebody's hands who has a financial incentive to keep it safe.
But on the, but just taking it a step farther, aren't you a little nervous about handing all of your data over to some other service? Because like for instance, these identity theft companies, my initial thought is, well, couldn't they use that shit against me and steal my identity? Because why should I trust that company with my data? Because I got to give them my data for them to protect my data.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Doesn't that run through your mind?
Yeah, absolutely.
So
absolutely.
What's the answer?
You have to build your own thing in your basement, like the guy I was talking about at the start of this.
That's the first thing I thought of. I was like, God, that seems kind of...
It seems weird to have to give them my social security number so they can monitor my social security number.
That's what I'm saying. Like, how do I know who to trust? Because they're just a company that has really nice advertising and these really beautiful, glossy advertisements that make me feel, warm and fuzzy. Like, they're great. Well, we see that in our food, and most of the food in this country isn't food. It's fucking poison.
Chemical, absolutely.
It's horrible.
I mean, you have it, and it's we're so conditioned in a capitalist society to be like, glossy, happy people. I want to be glossy, happy people.
It's powerful, man.
Yeah, it's really powerful. I mean, you do need to do your research. You do need to think about their financial incentives. There's a great absolutely. One of the things that is really cool, and I mean, I'm not going to give a big corporation like, oh my God, they're incredible. But if you go to YouTube and you look up Google Aurora, the Aurora hack is the Chinese PLA 61389, whatever their hacking department is, got into Google. I know it's a big white building. Like people, it's like it's like their office for hackers. Like you walk in there in your briefcase and you hack. They moved it over to the State Security Division of China like maybe 10 years ago. But they got in to Google, and like Google said, what the hell is going on here? And they just kind of laid bare. They had the people involved. They just kind of went through the whole hack and everything they had to do to back it out and make themselves secure. And one of the things that they realized is that why are we going to say, hey, we have, for an extra $50, you could turn on encryption. That's only going to hurt us financially. No matter what, you're getting encryption. Like no matter what, you're getting encryption at rest, in motion, and in use. We're not going to let you turn it off. So they just kind of realized like it's in our best financial interest to keep this all safe as we possibly can.
Gotcha.
Now, you're going to give it to people and people are going to leave doors open. They're not going to use the right credentials. They're not going to have, least privilege, all these other cyber concepts. But, Google will say things like, our default is everything is closed to the internet. And you need to figure out how to open that connection. And you need to do it yourself. We're shutting it off. So they put the onus on you to know what you're doing.
So in essence, it is a good idea to move all of our data to a cloud, allow a company to handle it. And if we want to access that, it's difficult.
I would say it's an interesting idea. There's some advantages to it, and some disadvantages. All of this stuff is so complex; it's hard to say, good idea or bad.
Oh, I see.
So, You don't have to have, like, the tools are just more integrated now once you're at a cloud provider, as opposed to like, I need to buy this tool to monitor this tool to monitor that. And so, you have a more uniformity of tools to look at cyber issues. You have guaranteed encryption at rest and use and motion. Like, the big things in cyber are CIA, and it's it's integrity, availability, and confidentiality. I did that backwards. Confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Okay. That's the big concepts of cybersecurity. And so these guys will say, we will guarantee confidentiality because we will have everything encrypted in all the things I said. Okay. We'll have integrity because only you will control the keys to this. Okay. And we'll have availability because with this cloud model, we will automatically fail over to like another region. Whereas like companies have to be like, I have to build another data center. It has to be 200 miles away. Does it have enough power? I need to run all that. But when you do that at the cloud, that creates all this scale that makes it easier to manage and a little bit cheaper. Now, just one example of why it's not good is, to your point, Google's not going to share their logs with you, like the really deep logs about, what's going on at the processor level. Like you signed up and said, that's our problem. Right. You're not going to see them. Another problem is that like just financially, like, sure, we used to store petabytes of data, but it was on these servers that, accounting could depreciate. Now it's all OpEx. Like, everybody's just like, how much is this costing us? So it's like, it's just different. And there's some people basically do it for the scale and the security. Yeah.
So, I mean, are major companies moving to the cloud or cloud services?
Yeah, for sure.
But they have to have a really a certain amount of trust with them, or some things integrated with the incentive structure, as you were saying, is that they're on the same page. Their incentives align, so to speak.
Yeah.
So, because that's a huge, and then you'd probably would see companies like Apple, if they use their cloud service, which they probably just own their own cloud service.
I think they do.
Yeah, so they just would buy the service and then make it part of their company.
Yeah, I don't know.
I would imagine corporations do that.
And
do banks do that?
Yeah, there's a diversity of cloud providers. Okay. It's a multi-cloud strategy.
Oh, okay.
But then again, that's right back to now there are seams, because Amazon works differently than Google, works differently than Azure, which is Microsoft's cloud. So some people are like, no, simplify and it's easier to harden. Some people are like, no, diversify, and then you're not hit so badly. Like, we'll keep all of our accounting data here, we'll keep all of our trading data here, so forth. So there's different strategies about how to handle cloud, but it's the scale and uniformity that is the security play, because you're not like, I can't update that system because we don't even have the code anymore in escrow to pull out to update. Wow. Like, we just need to build a whole new system. Can we get money to build a whole new system? Fuck no, that's too expensive. So it's a scale play to go to the cloud, and there's security involved with that.
Gotcha. How do you think quantum computing will impact banking, healthcare, and national security specifically? I know that's a mouthful. But just in general, the broad strokes.
I'm going to just drift towards positive. I hope. Let's do this. Try to end on a upbeat note. I really hope that instead of trying, let's say creating a cancer drug is, okay, we have 15 ingredients. Try them in this order. That didn't work. Now try them in this order. I really hope that quantum computing can allow us to try all 15 ingredients in all 15 ways and find the drug that's going to work faster.
Right.
So I really hope that it helps us with ways to improve the quality of life, especially as our planet gets dirtier and whatnot. Yeah. I think we're going to need to have breakthroughs, and if those breakthroughs can come cheaper, then more people will get them.
And also, we're acknowledging that quantum computing will empower the hacker, but won't it empower security?
Absolutely. Okay. If there's ever a difference, it resolves itself pretty quickly.
That's what I was figuring. And exponentially more quickly because we're in the quantum computing environment. And then do you use artificial intelligence for your tasks with cybersecurity ever?
Yes.
Right
so
now?
To your point, we are incredibly careful with it. So, the amount of times that not only our cybersecurity team, not only our lawyers, not only our CEOs are working to understand exactly if we put confidential information into a model, does it end up in the model that everybody else uses? So and I have smaller examples. That example is way above my pay grade, but I've been involved so basically in the cloud, everybody lives in an apartment building.
Okay.
And, apartment, the first floor is banking, the second floor is a caterer, the third floor is Netflix.
Okay.
We made one of our vendors build us a one flat.
Oh.
It's called jailbreaking. Like if there's a thought that you can leave Netflix and then get into banking, in that apartment building. This is a very overstated analogy.
Okay.
But this is what goes on in the cloud. It's called a shared node.
Okay.
We said we need a dedicated node. And we said we won't even do business with you if you can't give us a dedicated node. So my company takes it really seriously. So I am on some of the early adoption teams for this stuff, and I can tell you that they take it so carefully. And that's not only legal, that's information governance, that's cybersecurity, that's regulatory. We bring in wargaming teams to see.
I bet you do.
Yeah,
because everybody's butt is on the line. And I was also thinking if there's a breach, the first instinct that a human being would want to do is say, shit, keep that quiet. Not just because that's the protocol, because for obvious reasons you don't want to scare people, but that's your ass.
Yeah,
on the line.
That's why I think that Google Aurora set of videos, not only the production value is ridiculous, but it's just they went out and said, we fucked up. That's our ass. Oh. Here's how we figured out we fucked up. Oh. Here's all the pain we went through to figure it out. Oh. Here's what we learned from it. Oh. They're very just lay bare. It's obviously it's not a year after the event. It's well after it. But they did, to your point, they did say, we're not going to keep this quiet. We're going to go share everything we learned from this, because if we're all a little smarter, if we're all about this, everybody's safer.
Yeah, for sure. Well, let me get to just a few wrap up questions. Yeah. So, gosh,
I think healthcare is the area for quantum that I really hope we see benefits.
Yes, for sure.
I think in terms of other industries, you're going to see faster weapons built, new financial products,
but also climate change.
Yeah,
possible insight.
Possibly, but I also don't want it to be how can I map the depth of the ocean to get more food because the top of the ocean's fished out? Yeah. I how we use that increase in speed. I think it's not that's going to save us. No, to quote Taylor Swift, "Hi, I'm the problem. It's me." It's what we do with the speed that matters. What we apply it to is gonna save it. So that's why I want that healthcare example to really come through.
Yeah, me too. Well, is there, if you could be brief about these, what's the most surprising or intense cybersecurity incident that you can talk about that you've dealt with? Is there anything you can talk about?
There's one I can talk about that is old, and it lets you know about the level of tentacles and what you're aware of and not aware of.
Okay.
But I was working at a company, and the FBI came to our legal department and said, we just arrested one of your engineers getting on a plane going back to another nation. And he had a briefcase of your source code. And it's that engineer worked with us. We were not tracking him. This is all insider threat. And we were I never found out, but how did the FBI get on to this? How did they know to pluck him? It was literally like a movie. I'm talking Born Identity. He was on the jet bridge, and the FBI grabbed him.
What year about was this?
This would be 2022? This would be 2005.
Because the technology is at that time is obviously extremely relevant in terms of what they could have done to nab him.
Yeah, and one of the things, depending on whatever the IP the company has, the intellectual property.
Right.
If it's like, how fast you can build a car, like how fast you can build a fighter jet, you want to just take that to whatever nation you have and be like, great, we don't need to think about it now. We can just start building it.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was just crazy to realize like nobody in our company had any idea that this guy was an insider threat.
And that's what you're always dealing with, the possibility of having a threat that you are completely unaware of all the time. It's hard to not keep your head on a swivel, metaphorically speaking. And I also wanted to ask you on a last question, which is, are there any myths about cybersecurity that you'd like to bust? Like that people think that they totally is one way, but it's really just not the case. Common myths, because like for instance, when I would talk to, once I started learning about Bitcoin, for instance, I noticed most people had no clue what it was or what it was all really about, and there were just so many myths and misconceptions. Are there any that strike you about cybersecurity?
I don't know if there are like perceptions that need to be cleared up. I think people don't know the vast complexity of it. Like you could say I'm in cybersecurity and you could say you're in cybersecurity, and we could do totally different things, not even related. It is a vast vast and it's everything that we've covered here today. It's people's psychology, it's technology, it's antiquated technology. It's like there's so much to it that I think people think of it as just sort of like, you ever watch that show iRobot? It's pretty good. It's about these hackers, and everything in that show is true.
Wait, are you talking about the movie iRobot or is this show?
Oh no, maybe I'm getting this wrong. It's with Rami Malek.
No, I've not seen this.
Okay,
I thought iRobot was a movie with Will Smith.
What? Oh, maybe I thought Robot was in the title. I can't remember. But anyways, it's
Pardon me, Mr. Robot.
Mr. Robot. Thank you, Josh. Appreciate it. Thank you. Thank God somebody has a brain around here. But anyways, everything he does in there is true. It just doesn't happen that fast. I love that. I mean, do you think he's just in there this whole time going, what the fuck are these guys talking about? Thank you for speaking up.
So what was...
So anyways, it's like, it looks so cool because he's just like, I'm going to go like hack into this device and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, they don't show you that actually takes, hours and hours of sitting at a computer.
Right.
Doing stuff. So I think people just don't understand the complexity and the size of what it means to be in cybersecurity. I mean, there certainly are a lot of good careers there. I don't know how AI is going to impact those entry-level careers, which is where you get a lot of your chops, but it's not going to go away. I mean, you're just going to be aided with AI. There's still going to be people that can understand, is Ivan an insider threat, or did he just come into work drunk today? Like, like there's a difference why he pushed that button, he's getting fired either way. But, there's always going to be like something, and it's a wide field, and people just sort of think of like sitting at a computer in a basement. It's not at all.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well, man, it's been a pleasure to
Dude, it's been great. Thanks for inviting me.
Oh, absolutely.
Continued success on this.
Thank you. And where can people find you? Are you on the socials? You're on LinkedIn?
No, all the cybersecurity, not on the socials.
No, you're not. Of course.
If you want to talk to me, I'm on LinkedIn. I might even be hidden on LinkedIn. So if you want to talk to me, reach out to Steve, and Steve will get a hold of me.
Yeah. Well, do you mind if we put your LinkedIn
I'll send
the
it
show
to you.
notes?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, you can find Ivan Clatanoff in our show notes on LinkedIn, but that's the only place because he works in cybersecurity.
Yeah,
Ivan,
exactly.
thanks so much.
Thanks so much, Steve. It's been great.
Awesome.
Appreciate you.
Thank you for tuning into the show. If you enjoy this podcast, make sure to subscribe to hear more compelling episodes on Rhythm of Life, and keep an eye out for our upcoming series of how we as a society often incentivize all the wrong behavior here in the United States. We see this in the healthcare industry, the media, and in our educational systems, to name a few of the fields we will be covering. We will also be launching another podcast very soon called Ambiology that takes a look at the left-right political spectrum from a historical perspective. It will be a deep dive into this paradigm that is conventionally thought of as static, but has shifted significantly over time. Ambiology will also examine the significant role public relations, also known as propaganda, has played in shaping perspectives on critical issues in the country. If you have a moment, please leave a rating and review so more people can hear about us, and share about Rhythm of Life on social media, and like us on Facebook. Thanks for listening. I'm Steve Ordauer.
This has been a Rhythm and Light production.